This is the problem. Oh, I don't want to hear that. In what damn world there an accident waiting to happen? Lord have mercy, you can't be real about anything.
Dak Prescott's #1 fan just might be Hall of Fame Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman. Not a bad guy to have in your corner. Here's Aikman on SiriusXM NFL Radio.
I'm absolutely amazed with him, Pat. There's nothing I don't like about him. I've never felt the presence of a young quarterback like I did with him. And you say, wow, this is the most impressive young man I've ever been around at this position. And I really believed he was going to go out and play well. And I found that, before halftime of that game, his very first start, I was no longer looking at him and viewing him as a rookie. I felt my analysis kind of being along the lines of a veteran quarterback and what my expectations, were of him on the field. And I thought it spoke volumes just to how he carried himself.
Pretty solid endorsement. Will Kane still here with us. But Stephen, I want to start with you. Do you agree with Aikman that Dak is the best young quarterback?
Well, I think if you're talking about right now, sure, I give him love. But when he said the best young quarterback, I went to the ever route. And I'm not ready to say that. I mean, I'm sorry. I respect Dak. I got mad props and love for him based on what I'm seeing. But I recall seeing some dude by the name of Dan Marino. His second year in the NFL. Guide the Miami Dolphins to the Super Bowl. And I'm talking about a dude that was a straight-up gunslinger. I don't see Dak Prescott throwing a football like I saw that brother throwing the football. Dan Marino was something special to behold. Dan Marino was absolutely spectacular. In 3 playoff games, Dan Marino threw for 1,001 yards and guided the Miami Dolphins to a Super Bowl. His second year in the league. Now, obviously, that's not rookie. It's just second year in the league. That's why the operative word here is young. Had he said rookie, that might have been different, been a bit tougher to come up with it. But it was very, very easy for me. I said, wait a minute. I've seen plenty of games where Dak Prescott, major props to him in terms of his poise and leadership, looked relatively pedestrian throwing the football. There was nothing that knocked my socks off. There's a 15-yard pass here, a 12-yard pass there, a 10-yard pass there on a 3rd and long conversion, or whatever the case may be. But he wasn't some gunslinger that rolled out there without a running game where you had you and Mark Clayton and Mark Super Duper to throw the ball to and everything. Because you had no defense, because Don Shula didn't give you a defense. You had no defense, you had no running game, you barely had an offensive line, and Dan Marino went out there with everybody knowing it was 2 targets he was going to throw the ball to and couldn't stop him. So I'm just saying to y'all, I like Dak a lot. But when you talk about a great young quarterback, you mentioned him in the same breath. If he had mentioned him in the same breath as Dan Marino, I would have said blasphemy.
Here's
blasphemy.
Let me be sacrilegious.
That's right. Go ahead.
Look, he said there's something about him. Being around him. He didn't say he was around Dan Marino. He was saying,
don't get
young quarterback
with me.
is getting around.
What you going to tell me next? Is something about Mary? You going to bring up that movie since you like to bring up movies?
Dan
something
Marino,
about it?
Look, Dak Prescott will never have Dan Marino's talent. Dan Marino's more talented, period.
I won't say never.
No.
He just doesn't have it yet.
No. Dan Marino is a different kind of
animal. I won't say never.
No.
Don't say never with Dak. Don't say never with Dak.
Watch me. Never.
No. There you go again. The hyperbole.
Dan Marino was a different kind of talent. I don't think he's as talented as Andrew Luck, a quarterback from recent years who you saw him early. But there is something about Dak. Look, it is not out of the realm of possibility right now that Dak Prescott, as a rookie, can win the MVP and the Super Bowl in the same season as a rookie. Now, of course, he has a great offensive line and a great running back because no rookie quarterback could do it without stuff like that. So he is exceptional. He is not the most talented guy I've ever seen, not as a rookie, etc. But that's not what Troy Aikman was talking about. Troy Aikman was talking about the leadership thing, that star quality that we've seen since the first preseason game with Dak that we all talked about, that we all noticed. Roethlisberger had some of that. I find it completely credible that Troy Aikman can say, of all the young quarterbacks I've been around, that quality is more in this kid than in anyone else. I'm not talking talent, Stephen A. I'm talking about that.
We don't know how many he's
Do
been
it,
around.
Max. Do it. Complete the math equation. You can do it all the way to the end. as good as a young Dan Marino. You can be blasphemous. Don't let him scare you. You can everything
He's
you
not as talented as Dan Marino.
That's a nonsense word. It's an impenetrable, abstract nonsense word. Talent. It's one you can pull the ripcord on your argument at any point.
Impenetrable, abstract, you with your. I mean, what the hell is this?
You remember
Dan Marino? MIT?
Yeah, now I'm gonna.
What the
I
hell
remember
is
Dan
wrong
Marino.
with you two?
Now I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm
you
gonna.
two are something special, boy. I tell you something wrong with y'all.
Helping us elevate.
Go ahead.
I
Go
appreciate
ahead.
it. I
I'm
want
going
you
to
know.
Wrong
put
with
this
y'all.
in the blasphemy zone that
You go ahead
he
and
says.
go. You go there.
Yeah, I
You
will.
go. Where's
And you
my
know what?
Bible?
Like
Where's
I'm
my
taking
Bible? The
Latin.
blasphemy.
And my position.
Let me look it up.
Just to be clear, mine will be the rational one. Yeah. No. Yeah, I compared Dak Prescott to Dan Marino, and I'm the rational one. Because what you do is you take Dan Marino's entire body of work, including the fact,
I mentioned 83. I did not
This
say
is
his
his
entire
first
career.
season,
Don't
though.
misquote
Dak's
me.
first
Thank you,
season.
Molly. Thank you, Molly.
haven't seen
That's
Dak's
rational
second
thought.
season.
You're getting
You gave
bold.
Dan Marino.
You're getting bold. Don't be misquoting
Keep
me on my own
going,
damn
Will.
show.
Will,
I
keep
said
going.
1983.
Fine.
1983. I didn't
Let
say his
the
whole
man
career.
speak.
Okay, got it.
Go ahead.
You gave Dan Marino 2 years. You're giving Dak not even a complete season yet, and as Max just pointed out, he's currently in the race for QBR with Tom Brady and and Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is in the race to lead the league
Brady
in
and Matt
QBR.
Ryan.
He's about to tie Ben Roethlisberger for the most victories by any rookie in NFL history if he gets to 13.
And you want to start Tony Romo.
And he's very likely to take his team to the Super Bowl, something Dan Marino did not do in his rookie year. So you get 2 years. And I get 1, not even
My
1.
Lord.
And I'm telling
The
you, in the
blasphemy
same,
I think Will might
and I'm
know.
telling you, in the same sample
You
size.
do this with a straight face.
You're
It's
right, I do.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
Go
right, I do.
ahead. Go
In
ahead.
the same sample size. Dan Marino year 1.
Yep.
Dak Prescott year 1. You know who's winning? Dak Prescott. And that's beside the fact that Troy Aikman is right, and Max points it out. He's talking about things beyond stats. He's talking about things beyond QBR.
Character.
I don't know.
And I think
said-
I don't know
what
whether
a
to
leader
call
he is as well.
Will, Christopher Reeves, Clark Kent. I don't know what the hell to talk to you with that. Here's the deal. This is the thing that kills me about you. I said 1983, but I didn't stop there. I talked about Super Duper and Mark Clayton. I didn't stop there. I talked about no running game. I talked about a suspect offensive line.
Scrambling.
I talked about
Scrambling.
I'm not scrambling. I'm staying right on point. You know why, Will? Especially you, because you're a pro at doing this. You're not as gifted as me, but you're a pro at doing this. You'll bring up all the other intangibles. I recall you talking about Dallas's defense.
Oh, yeah.
You ain't gonna talk about Miami's defense back then, are you? I recall you talking about Dallas's running game. You ain't gonna talk about Miami's running game back then, did you? Don't ever give me Dak Prescott may very well be big time. I'm telling you right now, I don't give a damn. I will project because this is his rookie. He will not be what we saw from Marino in year 2.
Well,
cancel
I
that.
hear there's footage of a young Will Kane talking about there's some veteran quarterback on the Miami bench that they should start instead of Dan Marino in the second year.
You think so?
Are you still on the Romo thing,
There you
or
go.
are you backing
There
off
you go.
finally?
Let me show
There
you.
you go.
Let me show you how rational I am. It's Dak's team from here.
Oh,
Man, way to
Congratulations. Magnificent spirit. Okay.
Can you
Will, that was solid, though. You were trying to own him right there. That was solid.
Go
I'm a
ahead.
self-aware individual.
Oh,
I know when my-
self-aware, that's what it is.
I was listening
This is
to
a very two strong shows for
I'm gonna
Will.
analyze
Did my
myself on this.
listeners,
Okay,
did my
do this.
listeners convince you? Did my listeners, because you know he feels
Now,
different.
I love
my
that he
listeners on my
fills
radio
in.
show. Did my listeners on the Stephen A. Smith show, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio,
No.
What time?
1 to 3
Channel
p.m.
82.
Eastern time. Even though there's change coming next month, stay tuned.
Got it.
Did
Okay.
they convince you
No.
to see the
I'm going
light?
to tell you what convinced me.
ahead.
I'm in all self-awareness, like a therapist. I wanted to look into the mirror and say, why have
A
I been on the
therapist.
Tony Romo bandwagon for so
Therapist.
long?
So you needed therapy. He confessed he needed therapy. Keep
Nothing
going.
It has a lot to
that.
do with you. And I'm going to tell you, listening to one of my favorite
bane
radio
of your
stations, The
existence.
Ticket in Dallas, and they were talking about this. Tony Romo defenders have for so long been defending him against the moronic assertions of people like yourself and how to defend him in being the top 5 statistically great quarterback that he is, that when it got to this year, we had become so set in our habits and ways of rebutting your irrational positions that this year, when it flipped on us, we didn't realize there, at the very end, the beginning I was right, but at the very end, I had become the irrational one. You have to ride the 11-game winning streak.
Well, first of all-
You have to ride the young man.
There you go. There you go.
winning
There you go.
streak.
There you go.
You don't have to ride an 8-game winning
Be
streak.
gracious, man. Be gracious, man.
That's a good point. That's a
by the
fair
way,
point.
by the way, be respectful. There's nothing about my position that's moronic in any way. And by the way, all the citizens in Dallas, the radio stations, they call you. They don't call me. They know better. You understand? So ain't nobody hiding. Number 2, I said if Jerry Jones ever invited me, I'd go to a tailgate party with Dallas. Dallas Cowboy fans. That's how confident I am in my position. And number 3, I have 2+ decades of history to lean on. What do you have? What do you have?
Even though
for Tony Romo, even when Dak Prescott was winning, you have no credibility
came
in this
around very
argument.
big of
First
you.
of all, my credibility runs to 1981 when
please.
Dwight Clark caught a pass in the back of the end zone with
Really?
Stickum on his hands.
Oh,
when
with
Joe Montana
Stickum.
threw it.
With
Oh,
Stickum.
yeah.
With Stickum.
Yeah, the Cowboys use Stickum, right?
We don't have time to go down memory lane right now, even though I'd love to.
Stickum.
Let's move on.
Stick 'em.
After Ezekiel Elliott was
Stick 'em.
not fined by the NFL for jumping into the Salvation Army's red kettle in celebration this weekend, Odell Beckham Jr. claimed he would have been fined for the same action. Now, just days later, Beckham revealed in an Instagram comment that he was fined for wearing colorful cleats during the Giants game on Sunday. Beckham said his cleats were in honor of the late Craig Sager, and they will be auctioned off for charity to benefit cancer research. OBJ tweeting this. $18K without a single warning. But the world would never know. They act like it's no big deal. No respect for the message, in my opinion. Now, the NFL allowed players to wear tribute cleats for a charity in Week 13, but not during the past week of games. Max, I want to start with you here. Do you have any issue with this fine on OBJ?
Yeah, I wish the NFL wouldn't. I understand the idea that they have contracts with companies, and this undermines that when people wear, breast cancer awareness, whatever, or even Craig Sager cleats. But Odell has a bigger point here, I think. I was critical of him when he made the comment about Dak Prescott, given the fact that the Salvation Army does good work. And if someone's bringing attention to that, I didn't think Odell should make it about himself. And Odell, to his credit, tweeted out later that day or the next day, like sometimes I don't time my comments well or something like that. He is actually self-aware. But, when you're a young man that gets that much attention and that much criticism, it must feel, I imagine, how many of us are in that position, that you're victimized, that the world is coming at you fast. And your responses will be suboptimal at times. This puts his comment at the time into context. He feels that, look, I did a good thing. I honored a great person, and I'm raising money for a good cause, and yet I am fined for it. So really what he's saying is he's not against the Salvation Army. He's against the idea that more can't be done. But the timing of his comment, and without this knowledge, it made it seem as though he was being narcissistic and tone deaf.
But that's what he is being, Max. Look, the NFL isn't the big bad guy in this equation. If you don't like the rule, fine. If you don't think the players should be restricted in what they wear, even when it raises money for charity, fine. But the rule exists, and Odell Beckham knew it existed. He's a victim because he makes himself a victim. This is a guy who can jaw at the refs, get in a fight with Xavier Rhodes, get in a fight with Josh Norman, do all these things, and then say, they come down on me if I tie my shoes wrong. He always sees himself at the center of the story. Charles Barkley recently said this about DeMarcus Cousins. He said, it's always about DeMarcus. It's the same thing with Odell. It's always about you. You can't see the action, Odell. You can't see the difference. You can't see what you did. You knew it's against the rules. You knew it.
But
he knew it, and he did it anyway.
So take it from his point of view. He didn't come out and say, look, I had these cleats at first. He said, look, the Salvation Army thing. I thought that this was against the rules. And then everyone says, oh, why are you bringing attention to that? Why are you making it about yourself? Salvation Army is a good cause. Now here you are saying everyone knows the rules, but sometimes they can be bent. And that was his point.
Nobody's hands are completely clean in this. And I agree that the NFL, if you're going to intermittently enforce your rules, you're going to make everybody question them.
That was his point.
No, that's the point, though. He shouldn't be making a point. He should be doing what he knows is right, not breaking the rules to make a point.
He didn't bring up his cleats at first. But he simply brought up that is an inconsistent enforcement of the rules. He was then criticized for that, and now he is offering new information. That's why this was on my mind.
Gentlemen, calm down.
Oh,
I get a little emotional when I talk about the Giants.
Hold on, I just want calm down, said Stephen A.
I just want y'all to calm down.
Take a breath.
I just take a breath, be cool.
Who are you and what have you done with Stephen A. Smith?
Be cool, let's get it together, okay? Here's the deal. Will's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Rules are rules. And the fact of the matter is, Odell Beckham Jr. knew those rules. Now, we knew they were exercised intermittently because that's what the NFL does. Odell was aware of that beforehand. He's aware of that now. And he still feels this, so compelled to constantly speak. And the more he speaks, he's jeopardizing himself the way Max Kellerman so eloquently said that he's jeopardizing himself weeks ago. Max Kellerman sat here and said he should be quiet. because you're bringing unwanted attention to yourself and you're ultimately going to attract the ire of the league and officials and beyond. And he has to be mindful of that. Why? Because it is what it is. Fair, as my boy Jeff in California says, fair is a place where they judge pigs. It doesn't exist, okay? You got to put on your big boy pants and deal with that. However, having said all of that, let's be also mindful of this. The NFL is going to have to be more consistent. And I think they're going to have to heighten their level of sensitivity because, again, let's think about this. Where does that money go? I mean, you know, NFL gives to charities, but I think some of this fine money they get, I mean, that's feeding the charities themselves. It wouldn't shock me if we learned that that's the reality. You taking money from guys disguised as fines and everything like that, and you're donating that money to charity
I'd
instead
love
of
it if
directly.
that's the case.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what about directly out of your pocket as a league? Your money, okay? You should be doing that too. Not to say that they're not, but I'm mindful of all of these things. But in the end, Will is right. Big boy rules apply.
I want to
here.
address that.
You got to understand what the rules are.
I was totally
If you know it, you
consistent
know it.
about this. I was critical of him when I felt he was bringing unnecessary attention upon himself and not optimizing his potential. As a result, he was hampering himself. I was critical of him yesterday or the day before when this story broke about the Salvation Army and his criticism of the league and the inconsistent enforcement of their rules. I was critical. Odell, that's a bad look, etc. This is now the story. More information has come out. And he brings this up about his own fine. This actually illuminates the previous tweet and makes it look a little better. I'm not being asked to comment on the previous two instances, which I did at the time and was consistently saying, Odell, get a grip here, like realize what's going on. We're asked to comment about this,
Yeah, but Max,
where I have to admit
Can I say
he's
one
making
thing?
a good point about the inconsistent enforcement of rules.
One thing I do have to say, I think there's a better way he could have handled it. We saw what Cam did. We criticized Cam often. He honored Craig Sager. We saw him in his walkout outfit. He had the crazy hat. We clowned him for it in the post-game press conference. But I do believe that if Odell Beckham had jumped in that red Salvation Army kettle, he would have been fined for it. I do believe there is a double standard. I'm not saying
That's
he needs
why-
to,
that's
I'm not
Molly.
saying he needs to go out and say it, but I do truly believe there's a
Molly,
double standard
that's
there.
why I'm sitting here saying, Odell, shh, you're right. There may be a double standard.
You're feeding his victimhood mentality by saying that. That's the reason the NFL
Not paranoid if they're
forgave-
really out to get you, Will.
The reason the NFL forgave that fine is because it's bad PR to fine for jumping in the Salvation Army bucket. It's not who did it.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to
You
avoid.
can say it's bad
But-
PR
and I-
for Craig's honoring Craig Sager too.
But here's the thing. So, Max, I hate to do like be too trite or make childhood lessons here, but two wrongs do not make a right. And the fact that the
never bought into that
NFL
entirely.
didn't enforce. So you'd be the guy in Greece that doesn't pay taxes because nobody else does. You'd be the guy in Italy that says, I don't need to pay taxes, nobody else does.
Well, no, that's one example. I can give you others.
There y'all go venturing beyond.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is this.
Not paying taxes. That guy's not paying.
Calm down.
Just relax.
It's okay, Max.
cool.
Woosah.
Will's the one guy in Greece paying taxes, apparently.
Stephen A., let's change the subject here. You've got final take today. What's on your mind?
On my mind today is Mr. George Carl and coaches who feel the need to talk about players. I'll leave it at that until the end of the show.
You gonna be calm?
Absolutely. I'm ultra cool, baby.
Yeah.
I give new meaning to cool. Did you not know?
You do give new meaning.
You about to say something about my shirt. I know you looked at it.
He did give new compliments. He said multiple times you were right today. This
So
was
many
a
times.
win.
Can we pull that?
We
Let's
need
get
to
that clip.
footage.
Will is right. Just pull that and run that on loop.
we have to remember, I said it before I spoke. Had you followed me up,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about.
Details.
But because
Will,
you went first.
Thank you so
All right,
much
Merry
for
Christmas
being
to all
with us.
three of you.
Merry Christmas to you
Merry
too.
Christmas.
Happy
Merry
New Year.
Christmas. Happy holidays.